We have arrived at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in Stavelot for the running of the Belgian Grand Prix, the second cornerstone race of the season. Coming into this week, 4 drivers have been making the headlines this week. The first team news of the season comes from the returning Toyota team, as they have announced that 2-time world champion and current championship leader Franco Lopez will be joining the team in 2023. Franco has had an amazing 2022 season, putting the memories of a disastrous 2021 season behind him. He currently leads the championship by 3 points out of nearest rival Evan Byrne, and his current team Mercedes lead the Constructors' Championship by 13 points ahead of Red Bull. Franco's reason for joining Toyota is to take on a new challenge in the top class with the aim of hopefully making them world champions in the future. He will be hoping to end his time with Mercedes as world champion and hopes to have a decent first season with Toyota in 2023. The news now means that there will be at least one new driver at Mercedes in 2023, however it could be both, given that Franco's current teammate Amar Kar could join Red Bull next season, given he's put the Austrian team as his #1 choice. In terms of who could replace Franco at Mercedes, the contenders range from fellow 2-time world champion Joseph Willows, 2009 world champion Miklos Gau, 5-time race winner Laura Chong, and Chinese Grand Prix winner Jesus Perinen. Jesus could also end up being Franco's teammate at Toyota next season if he misses out on Mercedes, as he's likely to leave Renault at the end of 2022 due to the pick order. If he gets the Mercedes drive, however, then current DTM championship leader Rubino Gonzalez, current F2 title contender Jafari Blackwood, and current World Champ Car championship leader Gabriel Gomez could have a shot at that second Toyota seat. It will be fascinating to see what happens with both Mercedes and Toyota. The second team news of the day comes from Red Bull, as they have announced that Irishman Evan Byrne will remain with the team for another season. Evan is having the season of his life, with him finally being back in the championship challenging car. He currently lies second in the Drivers' Championship, 3 points behind title rival Franco Lopez, and his team Red Bull currently lies second in the Constructors, 13 points behind rivals Mercedes. Evan has achieved 5 wins this season, which is the most he's had since 2011 when he had 6 with McLaren, and throughout the season has put in some stellar performances which have made him a title contender this season. He will be hoping to win his first world title this season and then hope to defend it should he win it in 2023. The only question remaining at Red Bull is who will be his teammate, as it looks to be a shootout between current driver George Roque and current Mercedes driver Amar Kar, who could still be at Mercedes next season given he's put them as his #4 backup choice. If George loses the battle, then there is a chance he could end up at Ferrari next season, given that Jake Galloway won't be on the grid in 2023 due to him not signing up in time. The fight for the second Red Bull seat could go either way, and it is a fight that will be intriguing to watch over the next few weeks. The third team news of the day concerns Renault, as they have announced that Frenchman Romain Quarg will remain with the team for 2023. Romain is having an amazing season, despite reliability issues being a concern for Renault. He currently lies 5th in the Drivers' Championship, 9 points ahead of teammate Jesus Perinen, and his team Renault lie 3rd in the Constructors, 33 points ahead of Ferrari. Romain has put in some stellar drives throughout the season, including at Silverstone, where despite qualifying down in 17th due to changeable conditions, he came through the field to take a respectable 2nd place finish, splitting the 2 Mercedes drivers. Romain will be happy to know that he will still be with the team for another season, and he'll be hoping to have another great season in 2023. The main focus of Renault now is who will be his teammate, with Jesus Perinen more likely to leave the team at the end of the season due to the pick order. 3 contenders emerge, which consist of current Aston Martin driver Johannes Martins, current Williams driver Felix Sonntag, and 5-time world champion Florian Volker, who could return to the top class in 2023. It will be interesting to see which direction Renault end up going in. The final team news of the day concerns Haas, as they have announced that 2021 World Champ Car runner-up Bartosz Klas will remain with the team for another season. Bartosz has had an amazing return to the top class after coming off the back of an amazing season in World Champ Car. He currently lies 11th in the Drivers' Championship, 12 points ahead of teammate Michael Mocho, and his team Haas currently lies 7th in the Constructors, 3 points behind AlphaTauri and Lamborghini, who are tied for 5th. For the last few seasons, Bartosz has been rebuilding his career after a terrible 2016 season with Sauber, and his return to the top class has proved that his time away has paid off, as he has been regularly challenging for points in the much improved Haas. Bartosz will be delighted to know that he'll still be with the American team next season, and he'll be looking to have an amazing season again in 2023. The question now remaining at Haas is who will be his teammate. Michael Mocho still has a chance of being retained, however, as mentioned in the pilot episode, he may need to watch his back, as Haas reserve driver Nicolas Zorbach also has a shot at the second Haas seat, as does current Lamborghini driver Laura Chong and current AlphaTauri driver Miklos Gau, should they miss out on a Mercedes drive. Which direction Haas end up going in remains to be seen. And that is it for this week's edition of the GP4 OC News. The next team news will break at the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Who will be announced next? Tune in to practice next Tuesday at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, just on the outskirts of Milan. Hello everybody and welcome to round number 12 of the 2022 GP4 Offline Championship. We are here at the famous Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps in Stavelot for the Belgian Grand Prix. I am JW97 and I'm joined today by my arch nemesis Ra.
Yep, hello everybody.
Indeed, I'm about to get underway for practice here at Spa, which will have no rain whatsoever, and that's still the wrong loading screen, but we'll move past that as we get underway for this practice session. Obviously, there's no reserve drivers to report on, so all 22 of the current drivers will be taking part in this practice session, of course. And, well, we might as well get on and talk about reacting to the news, really, that's just happened in the GP4 OC news. And we'll start off with the big one, which is that Franco Lopez will indeed be leaving Mercedes at the end of the season, and he will be taking on a new challenge with the returning Toyota team. It's fair to say nobody saw this as a surprise, but it will be interesting to see him at that Toyota team next season, Ra.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does at Toyota. Let's see what car they'll have next season. It will be a rebuild, so I'm expecting to for a championship next season, but we will wait to see.
Yep, indeed, and it will be interesting to see how this one fares, really, as Michael Mocho is the first one out on the track in the Haas, of course. Of course, Haas announcing that Bartosz Klos will indeed remain at the team for another season, and, well, it's safe to say Klos has had an amazing return to the top class this season.
Yeah, it's been an amazing season because he's performed way better than his teammate Michael Mocho, and yeah, he deserves to stay in the top class, and he's really revived his career in the top class.
And given that, of course, Haas has an upward trend for next season, how much upward, we'll have to wait and see. Might be a good idea to stay at Haas next season.
Yeah, could be a great idea. He could be a championship contending driver, but we will have to wait to see. We don't know how up it is, but we'll have to wait to see. Could they challenge Mercedes and Red Bull? We will see.
Maybe we'll have to wait and see. Could they perhaps maybe challenge with Renault, given that the current top three teams have got a neutral trend? We'll have to wait and see. Of course, that's all for the future. The two other news, of course, speaking of Red Bull and Renault, of course, Byrne staying at Red Bull and Quark staying at Renault, of course. With Byrne, it was pretty much a no-brainer, really. He's having an amazing season with Red Bull, and, this season he's just proved how much of a championship contender he really is.
Yeah, moving to Red Bull was a great choice for Byrne, and it really paid off for him, and he's showing it from his performances here, and it's been amazing. Yeah, he's doing pretty well this season. Hopefully he can win the championship, but we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Indeed, as we look at Laura Chung, who's currently being held up by the Williams. We'll get on to her in just a little bit. And of course, with Roman Quarg as well, staying at Renault. Like with Klos, really, a very good season at Renault, despite, let's say, Renault's reliability this season.
Yeah, despite the reliability from the Renault, he's had a great season. I'm still looking for that first win back in the top class, so he's looking for that.
Is indeed. The question now being who will partner alongside him next season, because we do think that Jesus Perinen is more likely to leave Renault at the end of the season due to the pick order. So it looks like they could be looking at a new team. Of course, three contenders currently emerge for that, being Johannes Martins, Felix Sontag, and of course Florian Volker. And well, it just seemed like people are not looking at Volker as a contender for that. They're more looking at Martins and Sontag from what I saw in the stream chat. And well, I think it's safe to say that people are a little bit split with that one.
Yeah, it's a little bit split. Both of them are having great seasons. Sontag and Martins, both of them got points recently at Hungary. So, yeah, surprisingly for Sontag, he got points in Hungary. And also for Martins, despite his penalty. Yeah, and that's what they really needed. They want to fight for if they want to go for the Renault seat. And of course, they have only one expert contender, which is Volker. So right now, people are saying it's between those two, but we'll have to wait to see. We could have an underdog story in our hands.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Just because somebody is rated quite low doesn't mean that they won't be getting the seat. Just look at Matteo Catalan in during the 2019 silly season. Was never mentioned at all for the Toro Rosso seat, and then he came out of nowhere and ended up grabbing it right at the end. So, yeah, that was pretty much that. That's a pure example right there. As we ride on more with Mocho, he sets a benchmark of time, but it gets immediately beaten by Perinin, who looked like he got a bit of slipstream with him down at the pit straight there. But anyway, we might as well talk about the action and, of course, what happened last week as well at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Of course, the last Hungarian Grand Prix for now, of course, because it won't be on the calendar in 2023. And given this is Ra's, well, although he was there for commentary during the race, this is his first practice session since the news about the calendar came out, so I might ask him about that later. But anyway, as back to the action, as Perinin is trying to find a way through on Michael Mocho, and he's actually up on his personal best in the first sector at the moment, as everybody's now just dialing in the laps in this practice session. The tyres we're using, of course, is the hard tyres here at Belgium, the white wall hard tyres. So it'd be interesting to see what strategy is the best one. I mean, given it's a short track, it might be the best place to have hard tyres, really, given there's only 44 laps around here at the daunting Spa-Francorchamps circuit. But it should be quite interesting, that is for sure. But anyway, back to the action now. Then, of course, as we were speaking about Laura Chung when she was being held up by the Williams there, of course, it's important that we note about her because she's obviously got a 5-place grid penalty for this race for, well, in the words of Yui Mata, possibly having one of the worst laps, first laps he's ever seen by a driver, really. So, started off really at the start, really, when she took out Barcher's Kloss, which allowed him to then go into the side of David Coulthard. She already earned a 10-second time penalty for that because it was a clear and obvious collision at the start of the race. And then, to make matters worse, later on in the lap, while she's trying to tour back to the pits for that, because she had damage, of course, she then goes back onto the racing line, onto the chicane, and rips off Michael Mocho's front wing, taking herself out of the Grand Prix in the process, which landed her a 5-place grid penalty. And, well, given that she's in contention for a Mercedes seat, it's not the thing that she should be doing right now.
Yeah, not the thing that she'll be doing right now, but she is in contention for the Haas seat, and if Joe Jesus even get the Mercedes seats, her contenders are Gal for the Haas seat are Gal and Macho. So if Gal or even Macho get one of those Haas seats, she could be in danger. So that's a race that she cannot afford to have again.
Yeah, because let's not forget as well, of course, both Lamborghini drivers, not just herself, but also Rahul Patel, have both stated that they want to leave Lamborghini at the end of the season. And one, as mentioned, Laura also stating that as well. So it will be interesting to see how it all pans out, really. She needs a good weekend here in Belgium, of course. Of course, it is a track that she has had good memories at in the past, of course. She had a good performance here in 2020, of course, won here in 2019. Remember in 2020, of course, when she was fighting for a podium before her throttle decided to stick open and costing her a chance of a podium in that race. So, yeah, she has got good memories around here and she'll be looking to do well here at Spa. Of course, she will have the 5-place grid penalty to bear in mind as well. But, again, it will depend on how much that will affect her during the race as well tomorrow. But back onto the Hungarian Grand Prix. And, well, let's just say last week, because obviously you was on commentary at the Hungarian Grand Prix, just as Chung as we were talking about earlier, just had a little bit of an understeer moment going through Lifania there. But, anyway, as mentioned, of course, it was a dominant performance for Red Bull last time out, pretty much replicating the performance that they did in 2021. And really, it was a race that Mercedes just didn't have an answer to.
Yeah, Mercedes didn't have an answer. Red Bull took their chance and dominated in style, lapping the entire field. So, yeah, it was a very dominant display by the Red Bulls.
A burn lapping everyone bar his teammate, of course. Roke wasn't able to lap Carr, but still the statistic stands that Carr was a lap down at the end of it. But he, of course, finished on the podium, as we're looking at Carr right now. He's getting held up by one of the Alfa Romeos there around Blanchimont, as he will now come up towards the chicane now then, as Perinin coming into the pit. And we might as well talk about Mercedes because we mentioned that they were off the pace, but that was not the only thing that was making them put their heads in their hands last week at Hungary, of course, because Franco Lopez crashed out of the race with Jesus Perrin, a man who he could end up being teammates with next season, because, of course, we know that Lopez is now going to Toyota next season. Perrin could end up at Toyota next season and potentially be his teammate if he misses out on the Mercedes drive, that is. But, yeah, Lopez crashing out with Perrin has opened up the championship again, because going into Hungary, of course. Lopez had a 29-point advantage over Byrne, but thanks to Byrne getting the victory and the fastest lap of the race, of course, and with Lopez crashing out, the championship is now only down to 3 points again between those two.
Yep, and not only the drivers' championship, but also the teams' championship as well. So Red Bull gained big as well in the teams' championship, and Red Bull are still in this as well. So it could go down to the wire.
Yes, indeed, and it will be interesting indeed how the championship fares out in these remaining few races, of course. Although, of course, both Byrne and Lopez being confirmed this week. Byrne, of course, staying at Red Bull for 2023, and Lopez, of course, moving over to the returning Toyota team in 2023, leaving a vacancy over at Mercedes, which we might as well talk about, in fact, whilst we've got this practice session going on, because, of course, Lopez's announcement to Toyota now leaves a vacancy, at least one vacancy at Mercedes. It could be two vacancies, of course, because we know that Carr has put Red Bull down as his first choice, and he's currently battling with George Roque for that second Red Bull seat, but he does have Mercedes as his number 4 backup choice should his chance to go to Red Bull fall through. But yeah, in terms of who would get the one that replaces Lopez as out of the fault, because Verderi's had a crash. Verderi has crashed it over the bump, and that's his session done with. And it's kind of a similar sort of crash that we saw with Joseph Willows here back 4 seasons ago when he was battling with Florian Volker for the victory. But that is Verderi's session done with, and it looks like a little bit of a clumsy error there for the Italian.
Yeah, a little bit of a clumsy error there for him, and of course he got points as well last race, and yeah, no ideal, and he's pretty much lost mileage from this practice session, so he won't be taking part for the rest of the practice session, unfortunately for him.
Indeed, and of course, Verderi is in contention to possibly be at Ferrari next season, let's not forget. So, yeah, he can't be doing mistakes like that is for sure, as his car gets hoisted over the barriers, and of course, the spare car ban will be implemented on him once his car is back in the garage, which it is, so the spare car ban is being implemented. But back onto the topic I was talking about before Verderi had his accident, it does now leave one vacancy at Mercedes for next season, and obviously there is a whole row of contenders who could get it, of course. Joseph Willows, who we just mentioned there when talking about Verderi's crash, Laura Chung, Mikolas Gau, and even Jesus Perinen, who we alluded to as well. And it's safe to say, very stiff competition for Mercedes, and one, like with the Red Bull battle between Amar Khan and George Roque, could go either way.
Yeah, and those 4 contenders are strong contenders, and they're doing well this season, and it would be it's going to be very hard to decide on who will get either one of those seats or even both of them if Armour does end up leaving Mercedes.
Indeed, it will be fascinating to see indeed, and of course, only time will tell within these next few weeks who's going to end up being at Mercedes next season and being a potential replacement for Lopez, and maybe even a replacement for Carr should he end up at Red Bull next season and booting out George Roque in the process, which could lead to George Roque potentially going to Ferrari as well, because he's also a contender for that seat should he get booted out by Red Bull. So it should be an interesting fight, that is for sure. But anyways, we now ride on board with Michael Mocho as the spare car ban has now been put on Andre Verderi's car. And, well, for Michael Mocho last race at Budapest, it was a bit of an adventurous Grand Prix for him, it's fair to say, because he was very unlucky when it came to front wing damages during that race as well. Valdinger makes a mistake through into Lecombe there, and he goes wide, and luckily just about avoids damage there, but clearly getting a little bit too ragged on the edge there through into that corner.
Yeah, a little bit shaky there for Benz Valdinger, and he just kept it under control. Luckily, he doesn't get damage from that, so that was a positive thing for him, but that doesn't help his momentum.
Yeah, indeed, and he gets himself back onto the racetrack, of course. Of course, he retired last time out at his home race at Hungary, and so far, who knows whether he'll still be with the team next season, when, of course, they will once again be known as Sauber in 2023. There's a little bit of a question mark on what will go on with Vince Valdinger with that team next season, as Chung, meanwhile, goes with his son. But back onto Michael Mocho, who we're currently viewing him right now, or not, because we're now looking at Chatfield. But back to Mocho, as we were talking about there, an adventurous race for him. He lost 2 front wings during that race, one from the incident we talked about earlier with Laura Chung, and then later on in the race he had a collision with Joantas Martins, which earned the Brazilian a 10-second time penalty. But even despite that, he still managed to get points in that race. It was yeah, Mocho was definitely seeing red that race, it was fair to say.
Yeah, he was seeing red that race, but luckily he got points and pretty much damage limitation, and of course he needed those points, but of course, his future is still not that secure.
Yep, indeed, as we'll have to wait and see, of course. Let's not forget, he does have a chance to still be retained by Haas. Of course, we know that Kloss is going to be still at Haas in 2023. Whether Mocha will still be his teammate, though, is going to be a question, because, of course, he may need to watch his shoulders, because you've obviously got the likes of their current reserve driver, Nicolas Zorbach, who'll be looking to try and get the second Haas seat alongside Barthez Kloss. But you've also got, as Ra mentioned earlier, Laura Chung and Miklos Gau's all contact between Byrne and De Rosa there, and De Rosa's ended up getting damage from that whole exchange. In fact, no, he was pitting anyway, but in fact, they may have been lucky to not get any damage, but a little bit bizarre there for De Rosa to try and go for that move down at Eau Rouge.
Actually, Byrne was actually coming out the pits as well, so a bit bizarre. I mean, he actually crashed out that spot last season, so you would have been seeing the deja vu there, but luckily his past session ain't over.
Yeah, indeed, and in fact, I'm not sure if Byrne did actually get up a little bit of damage, because it looks like maybe part of his end plate part of his side may have come off. No, in fact, that was just the way the replay was working, so ignore that. But De Rosa gets through, but he's coming into the pits anyway. But that was a hair-raising moment there between Byrne and De Rosa, that is for sure. But yeah, back to the topic of Macho, and we'll try and finish off that whole topic this time by. Of course, he does have, as Ron mentioned earlier on, Loa Chung and Miklos Gau, who we're currently viewing right now, who could potentially get the second Haas seat alongside Barthez Kloss, should they miss out on course on a Mercedes drive. So it will be interesting to see where Haas end up going with, really, in terms of who will partner alongside Barthez Kloss in 2023. Will it be Loa Chung we're looking at here, Miklos Gau, Zorbach, or will it still be Macho? Who knows, really?
Yeah, who knows really? It could also go down to the end, so it will be it will be very hard to decide. So yeah, it will go down to depends on what happens at Mercedes.
Yep, indeed, as we ride on board with the man who's, of course, staying at Haas next season, Barthez Kloss, currently down in 16th at the moment and looking like he's not on an improvement at the moment. And, of course, he was held up a little bit by Andre Videri earlier on in the session before Videri had his accident going through into campus there. But anyway, as now Chung just goes out of the Jackie X corner there before making her way down towards the double left-hander of Puon, as now the first part and then into the second part she will go. But back onto the Hungarian Grand Prix. We talked about earlier Renault's reliability, and well, Renault had a bit of a nightmare race at Hungary. Initially it was looking good for Jesus Perinen after he qualified down in last because of the changeable conditions, and of course him getting damaged on the first lap, him making a mistake on the second lap, and also him getting held up on the third lap. It meant that he started down in last for Hungary, made a good recovery, and of course he ended up having that accident, as we mentioned, with Franco Lopez. But for Roman Quark, more mechanical issues, and another 0-pointer for Renault at Hungary.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, another 0 points for them. And yeah, it's not ideal, but of course they have a comfortable gap in third, so they don't need to worry. But if the reliability issues continue like this, and if they have incidents as well, they might have to watch their backs.
Indeed, and who knows really, is all a bit of contact there between Carr and Quag at the chicane there, as it was all bunching up there, as they were all getting caught up behind the Williams of Felix Sontag, who was just going into the pits there, as Roman Quag is crossing the line. He's currently right behind Jake Galloway, who of course, let's not forget, won here last season at the Belgian Grand Prix. Of course, I remember that race. It was kind of a bit of a disappointing result for a lot of people, as Galloway might have issues with this AlphaTauri there, because it's only just come out of the pits there going up towards Eau Rouge, but the camera decides it's going to cut away there, and I don't think anything has happened because there's no yellow flag, so that's good. So anyway, back to what I was saying there with Galloway. Last season's race, it was a little bit of a, how can I put it? It was a little bit of, the general consensus of that race was that it was a little bit of a, people felt a little bit down about that race because of how Galloway took the victory that race. Not necessarily him, but just the events that led to that as well. Martin's at the moment going through Radion there, but luckily manages to save it. But yeah, it was a little bit of an interesting one. Let's put it that way in terms of the general mood after that Grand Prix, Ra.
Yeah, it was a bit disappointing, but yeah, it is what it is. It's motorsport, it pretty much happens. But yes, some got results that they don't really deserve, and yeah, and some should have gotten better.
Indeed so. Laura Chung, meanwhile, is going to cross the line in the Lamborghini, and she goes into fifth position. And on the topic of Lamborghini, of course, from the Hungarian Grand Prix, of course, whilst Chung had a disastrous first lap of the race last week, her teammate Rahul Patel has been slowly starting picking up form recently. Scored points in Silverstone, and once again had a very good, strong finish at the Hungarian Grand Prix by finishing in fourth place. Patel really putting in these performances, considering that he's made it clear he wants to leave Lamborghini end of the season, and he needs to. We mentioned this last week. He needs to start putting in these performances if he's got any chance of still being in the top class in 2023.
Yeah, and he needs to keep continuing with these performances, and he could have a future in the top class. And let's see what he can do within this remaining races of the season.
Indeed so, is Cupot now trying to find a way through on the Williams of Jamie Griffiths, I think that is, and he gets through pretty easy. He's also another contender for the team that Ra has put down as his number one choice, Rahul Patel, that is. That is, of course, Sauber, and it'd be interesting to see which direction Sauber going in, because we know that there will be at least one vacancy at Sauber. Could be two, as mentioned, with Bent Valdinger's future at the team being a little bit uncertain. And so who knows, really? Could Sauber end up with a new lineup in 2023, or could they just have Valdinger retain and then have somebody replace Wilson in that second seat? Of course, we're still yet to know who's going to replace her for the final four races of the season in 2022, but hopefully we'll get an answer to that very soon indeed, because the Mexican Grand Prix is only, just over a month away, so that's that really. I think Patel just made a mistake there coming out of Stavlo, went a bit wide, and Roke is now trying to have a look at him through into that corner there, but that's that, as Patel now makes his way into the final chicane now there on the racetrack as he flicks the car in through the right and left-hander. And he'll soon be crossing the line quite soon. Another driver who had a good race at Hungary was, of course, the home favourite Miklos Gau, who finished in fifth position. And, another strong performance for the AlphaTauri driver, and he needs to, really, given the competition that's there for the two seats he's trying to chase for.
Yeah, and even if he misses out on one of them, he could get the other one. So we'll see. It could be good things for Gal. If he gets either one of those seats.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, of course, in these next few weeks. We run on board with Johannes Martin, who's going to cross the line very soon. Of course, Ra alluded to this a little bit earlier, but Aston Martin getting a double points finish at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Even Martin's as well, despite the 10-second time penalty. He did enough of a gap on De Rosa to stay in 10th place in the end and ensure double points for Aston Martin. So much so that they are now ahead of McLaren in the Constructors' Championship on account back of higher results, really. They've had a 7th place, whereas McLaren have not. Their highest finish this season, I think, has been 8th place, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why Aston are now ahead of McLaren, and a great weekend for Aston Martin at Hungary.
Yeah, a great weekend for Aston Martin, and pretty unusual to see them ahead of McLaren. And all that Bob Patel has gone off. What has happened there?
Looks like he's had a spin going around Pouon there. I was noticing why on earth the Haas was going slow through there. It's because Patel has had a moment going through into Pouon and he's having to wait for a gap in the traffic, really. And there's a lot of cars fizzling their way down through here. But finally, he's found a gap and crashes out as a result of it. So, as always, car is coming back across the track. Hopefully, people can avoid that as his car is wheeling back onto the track, thankfully now off the racing line, but I think that will be his session done with. A little bit of a clumsy error there from Rahul Patel there, unless it was caused by contact, I'm not sure, as we only saw the aftermath really at the spin, as meanwhile Amar Khan goes up to 4th in the Mercedes, but as we just wait for his car to get wheeled over, but let's see how this happened. Was it a mistake or was it because of contact? Let's have a look, and it might have been because of George Rowe. Let's have a look here.
No, it was just a mistake.
Yeah, see that Patel got a little bit distracted there by George Roke, and Patel just went spinning as a result of that, and as a result has ended his session because of that clumsy error.
Yeah, and he didn't really have enough turn in.
Yeah, it is annoying, but what can you do? It's Patel. That's his session done with, as there'll now be only 20 cars left during this practice session as we wait for that. I think it's going to take a while though for the car to get hoisted over the barrier because the wall is actually quite far away down at that part of the track. Meanwhile, Lopez trying to find a way through on one of the AlphaTauris here, but has to back out of it. Also, there's yellow flags down there as they attempt to clear Rahul Patel. Not like there's any yellow flag rules in practice and qualifying, only really in the race really. But anyway, as As Carr, meanwhile, is up on Lopez in the first sector by 41 thousandths of a second in the Mercedes as he goes around the Culm nail there, as now making his way down towards Bruxelles and then the Jackie X corner he will soon go to. But a good weekend for Aston Martin and a good weekend also at Hungary for Williams, because finally they scored their first points of the season thanks to Felix Sonntag, who finished ninth in that race. And well, it's been a difficult season for them, but finally all 11 teams have scored at least 1 point in 2022.
Yeah, finally, and it's what they needed, and it was very unexpected, but Sontag was there to pick it up, and he pretty much deserves those points after a tricky season so far. And will they get more points? We'll have to wait to see. They might need more crazy races like Hungary.
Yep, indeed, as Patel has now been hoisted over the barriers, although his car is still not in the garage just yet, as his Lamborghini still not in the garage at the moment, just his teammate Laura Chung now makes her way into pit lane. But as mentioned there, Williams scoring points, and it's now just a case of the Drivers' Championship, because only one driver is still yet to score a point in 2022, and that is Jamie Griffiths. He's currently down in last, the only driver now this season to score no points so far in the 2022 season. Whether he'll get a point by the end of the season, though, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult season for Griffiths. It's been more difficult than last season as well. So yeah, he is struggling with this car. He's had some moments, but it's not been there throughout because he's had mechanical problems.
Yep, indeed, as Sontag makes his way through into La Source now. They're currently in last at the moment. Griffiths currently up in 19th. So far, Videri and Sontag, the only two drivers to be over 3 seconds off the pace. Patel's car has still not got into the garage just yet, which is a little bit surprising. Clearly taking a while to get back there, it seems, as we look now at Franco Lopez in the Mercedes, as he now makes his way through into Blanchimont. Is Patel going to arrive now then? Because it's a little bit hard to tell when a car is going to arrive back into the garage or not. So it's still only Chung in that garage at the moment. No sign of Patel in the other Lamborghini at this stage. I guess we'll have to wait. Okay, fair enough. Yuri will obviously go back to it once he sees it on the app when another car appears in the garage. But anyway, Gal now then currently being followed by Franco Lopez at the moment as they make their way up towards Eau Rouge Corner. Could that be the car that Gal could end up being in 2023? Who knows, really? As mentioned, the stack of competition for that in next season. It's going to be very interesting indeed. Obviously, we might as well talk about Ferraris. I think Patel's car is now in the garage, judging by the fact that Yuri has now paused the game. But anyway, in moving on to Ferrari's Hungarian Grand Prix, Jake Galloway finishing in 6th place at the Hungarian Grand Prix. But for Chris Chatfield, who was looking also pretty strong in that race, mechanical problems halted his progress in that Grand Prix.
Yeah, that was not ideal for Chris Chatford, and yeah, we wouldn't know what he could have done on that two-stop because he was on the two-stop, same with Galloway and Griffiths. So yeah, Galloway did well for the two-stop. It would have been a big what if on what Chappell could have done on the two-stop.
Indeed, and it would have been interesting to see if Ferrari would have ended up with double points in that race. They are very comfortable, though, in 4th place in the Constructors' Championship. They have got a gap to the battling AlphaTauri, Lamborghini, and Haas, of course, who, of course, last race, Haas dropped down to 7th in the Constructors behind both AlphaTauri and Lamborghini, who are both tied for 5th. AlphaTauri being ahead due to the fact they've had higher results than Lamborghini. As Lopez trying to find a way through on the outside, but Lopez is coming in at the end of this lap. One team, though, that will want to forget Hungary, of course, we alluded to them a little bit earlier on when talking about Aston Martin, that is McLaren, because they were looking like they could have got some points last time out at Hungary, thanks to Joseph Willows, who was looking set for a 6th place position, and then in the cruelest twist of fate, as everybody seemed to be heartbroken by it in the stream chat, Willows ended up with a suspension failure with 5 laps to go, and a chance for them to get ahead of Alfa Romeo in the constructors went down the pan because as a result, all it did was allow Aston Martin to get ahead of them in the constructors, and McLaren now find themselves down in 10th in the constructors championship, which if they stay there for the end of to the end of the season, it will be their worst ever finish in the top class because of course when they had Honda, the worst finish they've had is 9th position, both in 2017 and 2018, and well, if they finish in 10th, then it'll just compile the misery of McLaren this season.
Yeah, indeed, and they're pretty much having what Alfa Romeo had last season. They finished behind Aston Martin last season, even though they had a better car. They were quick in qualifying, but they were just not there in the races and sometimes unreliable. They do have moments, but then stuff not of their own doing happens. So yeah, but of course, Willows he is doing well, but of course the points he's had doesn't reflect on it since he's lost a lot of points due to reliability incidents, and he's kind of like he's having like a similar part of Federi of what Federi's had last season, but he's performed way better than what Federi had last season. But the reliability part is what I'm looking at there, which is cost them a lot of points.
And whether Willows will be at McLaren next season now is going to be a question because, of course, let's not forget Willows has put Mercedes down as his number one choice. He could maybe end up moving teams as a result of this frustrating 2022 season that he's had with McLaren. He could still be with the team, though, for next season, but it all kind of really depends, I think, what goes on with the Mercedes situation. It's going to be interesting to see how that one sort of unfolds as... yeah, it will be very interesting to see, that is for sure. So with just over 14 minutes to go, this is what the practice session currently looks like then. It is Lopez at the top with Byrne in second, Carr in third, Perinen is in fourth with Chatfield in fifth, then Roke is in sixth, followed by Chung-Sam, De Rosa 8th, Mocho in ninth, Gal is in 10th, followed by Galloway in 11th, Quag in 12th, Willows in 13th, Kupak is in 14th, followed by Valdinger in 15th, Patel in 16th, Martins in 17th, then Kloss is 18th, Griffiths 19th, Wilson 20th, Federi 21st, and Sontag in 22nd position. Now, of course, I brought this up earlier on at the top of the show, really, but might as well bring it up now then, because of course this is the first practice session that Ra has commentated on since, of course, the provisional calendar got revealed, of course, and well, Yuri's obviously reacted to it, so might as well get Ra's first reaction to the provisional calendar, really. So, your thoughts on it, really, Ra, because I think the interesting points that everybody has brought up is, of course, Road America, Interlagos coming back, of course, Aragon being on the calendar, and of course the first ever Saudi Arabian Grand Prix in Jeddah.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting. Of course, having Road America as the opening round of the season. It is kind of weird not seeing Australia as the opening round of the season, but it's going to be a later part of the season, so it's kind of weird, but it would do. So we'll pretty much have to get used to it. But will it be there for as long as it will be? We don't know. And of course, Saudi Arabia can't wait for that. Of course, Yuri has said that it is good in GP4, but we'll wait and see on how it does as when we get to next season.
Indeed, and of course we'll obviously have Aragon next season. Whether or not it will use the hairpin like we saw yesterday in Formula E, or whether it will use the MotoGP version, which is the one that DTM use, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, he does have Austin as a backup race should any of the races go wrong, such as the likes of Jeddah, Road America, Aragon, and so on. But we'll have to wait and see, of course. If Austin, of course, does end up onto the calendar because of some issues, then it will host the Texan Grand Prix. But of course, if it replaces Road America, then it will of course assume the US Grand Prix name instead. But yeah, obviously the races that got removed from the calendar, of course, Ra, as we saw, we obviously mentioned it earlier, Hungary's been removed from the calendar, as has China and of course Yehognam, and they could return in the future. But yeah, are you a little bit surprised to see those three not on the calendar next season?
I was a bit surprised by Hungary, but what can you do? I mean, it's the will that decides it, so any track can be removed as Lopez has had a moment, and he's lost his front wing from the curb.
Yep, clearly pushing a bit too hard on the exit of Lecombe there, and as a result, has lost his front wing over the bump, so he's going to have to come back into the pits to get a new one. Luckily, it didn't end his session there, but yeah, so he's going to have to tour back to the pits. But as you were saying about the free removals.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised about Hungary's removal, but what can you do? Of course, the wheel decides it, and yeah, any track can get removed, but hopefully it won't be too chaotic. Like
And you
what has happened this season for next season's calendar, and even this season's calendar as well.
Yeah, especially when you've got Melbourne as round 14. As Willow's getting a little bit out of shape coming out of Raddy on there, but thankfully no damage on his car. Of course, that curve has caught out so many people over the seasons, especially in the Grand Prix. So that's pretty much that there. Willow's very lucky he didn't lose his front wing in the process of all that as the Haas gets through on him there into Lecom. But yeah, of course, you didn't mention that Shanghai and Yehognam were surprised. Any particular reason why you didn't think they were surprised being removed?
It could be down to like corners that we see some incidents like in the wet for Korea, and but in China, I think it could be down to some corners that we see incidents in the dry.
Perhaps indeed, of course, it is the will that determines them. But as mentioned, those tracks could return in the future. But for now, at least, they will not be on the 2023 calendar. But the track, of course, that is returning next season is, of course, Interlagos. But as the second round, as opposed to the season finale, which I guess people were not too surprised seeing Brazil back on the calendar. But I think they were more surprised about where it is on the calendar. Same really with Australia being at round 14 of the season.
Yeah, indeed, and of course, Interlagos back then was at the start of the season. Like I said, last time they had that was I think 2003. So yeah, it was quite long since they had Interlagos at the start of the season. But yeah, I think people who have watched Formula One back then have liked having Interlagos at the start of the season. But I do prefer having it being at the end of the season. But it's going to be a new experience seeing it at the start of the season.
I think people are, well, from when I was watching F1, are used to it being either at the back end or the front end anyway, but it works both ways, really, as a season opener and also as a season finale as well. It works both ways, really, I think. But anyway, as Galloway now makes his way into the pits. Enough about the calendar now. I think we've talked about it long enough. So we might as well talk about some other things outside the OC, including DTM, of course. We might as well talk about because that has been a talking point throughout last week, of course. Because it's fair to say that a lot of people are definitely very excited about the new era for DTM because it will be following the same route as what Formula E and World Champ Car have been going in. That it will be a non-equal car series from next season. But on top of that as well, we also have the 4 new manufacturers because we knew that going into the sign-ups, Ferrari, Corvette and Lamborghini were announced, but the one that got left right at the last minute was, of course, Aston Martin. But yeah, 7 manufacturers on the grid. I think DTM is probably going to be really exciting next season.
Yeah, it will be very exciting this for next season. So let's see what would the lineups be, and I think it will be very interesting to see what the new manufacturers entering DTM can do.
Yep, indeed, and of course we know the cars that they'll be using next season as well. You obviously may have seen them on the Wikipedia, of course, for the 2023 DTM season. Of course, Ferrari will be using the 458 GTE car. The Corvette is using the C6.R GT1 car. Lambo using the Gallardo GT3, and of course, the Aston Martin using the DBR9 GT1 car. But of course, Mercedes, Audi, and BMW, who of course in the series, they're using the same cars as they are right now, really. But of course, it will be very exciting to see, and it should hopefully make for a very interesting championship in 2023, as of course they are now joining World Champ Car and Formula E and being a non-equal championship. Only Formula 2 now is the equal series, which I think it's probably how it should be, really, given it is a feeder series to the top class. So, yeah, that's pretty much that, really. Of course, Formula 2 will be on later on tonight at 7 p.m. BST for the F2 race here, 26 laps. I think I will be there for commentary. Obviously, I will clarify that later on, but I should be there for commentary, and I think Dennis will be as well, from what I remember, but I could be wrong on that one. But anyway, as Evan Byrne has gone into third position, so far we have a Mercedes 1-2 here in this practice session with Lopez out of car, despite Lopez, of course, losing his front wing a bit earlier on. He has made his way back out onto the track now with a brand new front wing on his car. So that's pretty much that. Is his teammate Carl, we're heading back into the pits. So he's currently getting held up by Jamie Griffiths as Williams. as they make their way into the last corner. Of course, one thing to note as well, you may have noticed it at the start of the stream, but we've now finally got the intermission music finally working for these streams. You may have heard it at the start of the stream before the news video came on, so we will be using that for the remainder of the season, and I think Yuri will also be using it for the Formula E and World Champ Car streams as well. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's going to be that. But yeah, I'm correct about that. Yui's just clarified that. So that's that, really. They will be having intermission music. I don't think it's going to be the same for F2 and DTM because, well, the intermission doesn't last too long for F2 and DTM. If anybody's watched Flow streams in the past, so there's probably not a need for music in that, if we're being totally honest. But yeah, that's that, really. But anyway, as the Martins now then goes down the hill, heading down towards Eau Rouge and Radion now then. So currently Martins finds himself down in 17th at the moment, ahead of Bartosz Kloss, who seems to not have the pace around here at the moment in this practice session. Teammate Mocho currently up in 11th. Quagga has gone up into 7th place meanwhile in this session. So with just under 6 minutes to go, this is what the leaderboard currently looks like then. Lopez at the top with Carr in 2nd, Byrne in 3rd with Perrin in 4th position. Then we have Chatfield in 5th, Roke is in 6th, followed by Quag in 7th, and Chung in 8th, Galloway is in 9th, followed by De Rosa 10th, Mocho 11th, Gal is in 12th, Willows is in 13th, Qpot 14th, Valdinger in 15th, Patel 16th, Martins in 17th, Kloss in 18th, Wilson 19th, Griffiths 20th, Videri 21st, and Sontag in 22nd position. Of course, Patel and Videri not taking any further part in this practice session after both of them crashed out in this practice session at 2 separate points within the session. Of course, Videri crashed out at the exit of the campus corner, and of course, Rahul Patel crashed out just at the exit of Puon there. So, yeah, that's pretty much that, really. So, only 20 cars running at the moment in this practice session, but of course, we'll be seeing Videri and Patel back out for qualifying, which will start a little bit later on. Well, after the stream, of course, it will do. Obviously, we'll have a fresh stream to start off that qualifying session. And of course, you'll hear the intermission music again when that happens. And yeah, that's that. As Griffiths now makes his way back into the pit lane now then for Williams. And whether or not he'll be in the top class next season, it is a little bit of a question mark because, of course, we know that he's made his intentions clear that he wants to leave Williams at the end of the season. He hasn't put Williams in his sign-up choices, but whether he'll be on the grid or not, Ra, is another question because Griffiths has had, it's safe to say, not the best of seasons in 2022.
Yeah, and it's not great, and this season has hurt him a lot. Same for last season, but I mean, last season does hurt. Some parts of last season do hurt him a bit, but this season does hurt him a lot. So it's not ideal for Griffiths, and he's got to turn it up and start picking up the performances and try and beat Sontag. So far, he hasn't been able to do it. He's had some glimpses where he can race other drivers now are quicker cars than him, and of course including his teammate, but his car does let him down, so he's got to hope that he has a good race.
Indeed so, as Willows now makes his way through Eau Rouge and Radion there. Chatfield now comes into the pits for Ferrari, as George Roke now then is about to start his first flying lap after his time in the pits. His teammate Evan Byrne is just behind him at the moment on the racetrack as Roke makes his way down towards Eau Rouge now then. Of course, Roke and Carr still looking for their first victories of 2022. Of course, Roke has took pole last time out of Hungary, but still not been able to convert it, and once again getting another second place finish this season. And, well, it will be interested to see whether or not Roke and Carr can achieve a victory before the end of the season. But Lopez's crash, of course, did put them back into contention for the championship, but they've got to start picking it up in this second half of the season if they want any chance of winning the Drivers' Championship in 2022.
Yeah, Roke's consistency of second places is there, which has helped them be in contention, and same with Carr's consistency of getting points in every race so far. I think he's the only one who has scored in every race this season.
Yeah, indeed, and, well, Carr still looking for that first win. Of course, let's not forget, at Hungary last time out, he had that lightning start from the second row of the grid where he was able to jump the two Red Bulls on the front row and get into the lead. It didn't last too long, though, because eventually the two Red Bulls were able to overtake him again within the first few laps. and well, that was that really. And then that just started then with the Mercedes as just having no pace compared to the two Red Bull drivers really, and the Red Bulls just going off in a league of their own at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Whether that will be the case here in Belgium is another question, but it looks like so far in this practice session, might of course change when we get to qualifying, but so far in this practice session, the Mercedes look like they've got the pace around here, but of course things could change in qualifying, and of course the race is a completely different story. Of course, race pace is completely different, that is for sure. Kloss is coming back into the pits, and I think that's his session done with. He's down in 18th position, so not exactly the best of sessions for him. Sontag improves, but still 3.5 seconds off for Franco Lopez, just as Evan Byrne now makes his way into the pits for Red Bull. That might be his session. Though, as Roke now goes to the top of the timing sheets now, then with a 1:41.159. So Roke already lighting up the timing sheets now with that lap time, so he goes to the top of the timing sheets at this stage, ahead of the two Mercedes, 66 thousandths quicker than Franco Lopez, who we're currently riding on board with, as he didn't improve on that occasion. Kupok about to start a lap in the AlphaTauris. His teammate Gal's finished for the day. Both AlphaTauris currently outside the top 10 in this practice session. Galloway we're looking at now, last year's winner here in Belgium. I'm not expecting Ferrari to challenge for the victory this time around, but you never know, of course. Apparently in the test race, and this was according to Yuri, of course, yesterday when I was commentating with Formula E, during the test race, the Ferrari actually looked pretty decent around here at Spa, and we know that they've got a very good straight line speed, so who knows really, maybe Ferrari could actually have a very good weekend here.
Yeah, we will see. So for Chatwood is in 6th, Galloway 9th. They look kind of decent, but of course, we'll have to wait and see when it gets to qualifying. And qualifying is a different story. Is going to be, it could all change, and of course, the race is a completely different story.
Indeed so, as we're looking at Joseph Willows, who's up on his personal best in the middle sector now then, as he's just now making his way towards the chicane, the final chicane on the racetrack now then, as he's now coming around the right and left-hander, using all the curb as possible through into this last chicane now then. Out of the final turn and onto the pit straight will go Joseph Willows, as he will now come across the line now then, and does he improve on his lap? He does, but still in 13th position at the moment is the McLaren driver. Wilson crosses the line, no improving. I think we're now sticking on board with the drivers for the remainder of the session, as Quark will get one more flying lap in before the session comes to a close. Felix Sontag rounds the final chicane now then in the Williams, as he now makes his way onto the pit straight now then, and Felix Sontag is now going to cross the line, and no improvement, stays where he is. Bent Valdinger across the line, he will go now then, and he does not improve. George Rote, meanwhile, up on his personal best. He could improve again on his current fastest time. He crosses the line, but loses time in the last sector and goes 9 thousandths slower in the end there then. A couple of the cars starting their lap, including Jesus Perinen, as here is Franco Lopez, the Toyota driver for 2023. We're hoping to end his stint with Mercedes with the World Championship. It would be the best send-off he could give to the German manufacturer, as now Franco Lopez is now going to cross the line, no improvement, and he stays where he is for the moment, as now David Kupok crosses the line in the AlphaTauri, and no improvement for him, stays in 14th. 10, 9, 8, and now we have 7, and 6 is now on the clock. 5, 4, and now 3, as Galloway crosses the line. 2, 1, and 0, and the checker flag is out. That's the end of the session. I think De Rosa was the last car there to cross the line in the McLaren, so De Rosa will be the last one to finish, as now Laura Chung crosses the line in the Lamborghini. No improvement, she stays where she is. Martin's just getting mileage in the Aston Martin, same with Jamie Griffiths in the Williams, as we now look at Joseph Willows in the McLaren now then, on his final flying lap in this practice session before qualifying starts, as he now comes around Stavlo now then through the right-hander. He will go. So now he makes his way towards Blanchimont now. In fact, we've got a yellow flag, in fact, down at the Pouon. I can just see as Quarg has a crash towards the end of the session there down at Pouon. So Quarg has had a bit of a moment through into there. Now, was that contact or was that because of a driver error? And in fact, no, it was because of mechanical failure.
Yeah, he's got a puncture just on the steering wheel. And yep, confirmed, it was a puncture that caused him to, well, all over, and it was from the rear. You can just tell it because yeah, the well, I can't really say it properly.
Indeed, as now we look at Joseph Willows, who comes around the last chicane. Quag was actually just starting a lap there, but he's now not going to have a chance to finish that off as a result. As now we look at Joseph Willows, who's now crossing the line in the McLaren now then, and he does not improve. Here comes Amelia Wilson. Across the line she will go. She's up on her personal best, and she goes into 18th position. Gets in front of Kloss, who's not had the best practice sessions here at Belgium. Here comes Felix Sontag, who's up on his personal best, heading his way into the final chicane. Through the right and left-hander now, then he goes. Can he get himself above Andre Videri before the end of the session? Let's see. Sontag down the pit straight and across the line now, then he will go. And the answer to that is no. Loses time in last sector and remains in last position. Valdinger, no improvement. As Roke does improve, he goes 83 thousandths quicker than his personal best of 141.076 for Roke. Right at the end of the session there, as Chris Chatfield makes his way onto the pit straight. Across the line, he will go, and he stays in 6th position. Jesus Perinen comes out of the last chicane now, then making his way onto the pit straight, and across the line now, then he will go. No improvement, stays in 5th position. Lopez stays in 2nd place. Q-Pop back in the pits, and now we look at Galloway. Of course, De Rosa is the last one to cross the line. Let's not forget, as Galloway has got someone on the inside there, but it doesn't work out. As Galloway now, then round the last chicane, onto the pit straight now, then will go the Ferrari driver as he now makes his way across the line now then, and I'm not expecting an improvement. And note, Galloway stays in 9th. Cards improved. De Rosa, last one to cross the line, no improvement. He stays in 10th, and that's practice done with Roke top, Lopez 2nd, and Carr in 3rd position. So again, I think a little bit too close to call for Red Bull and Mercedes at the moment.
Yeah, a bit too close to call. Roke did turn it up at the end. We'll have to wait and see what will happen in qualifying right now. So right now it is between Mercedes and Red Bull for pole position.
Yep, indeed. Well, we're just going to take a brief pause, of course. We'll come back with a fresh stream for qualifying, of course. But in the meantime, I've been JW97. He's been Ra, and we'll see you in just a little bit for the qualifying session. See you in a bit.